All right. Welcome to GuildIt, everyone. We're really excited about our presenter today, and I'll tell you more about him. But first, I'll tell you more about GuildIt and this wonderful space we're in. We fuse art and business. We like to grow art businesses and therefore grow the Kansas City culture and the arts culture nationwide. Some of our artists are nationally and internationally known as well as regional. Today, you just have me on the team and our videographer, Sam Game. And of course, we're in this wonderful gallery of Kansas City Artists Coalition. If you're watching on live, please do come down here or go over to their website and view this delightful exhibit they have. Really fun. It's not only on the walls, but it's on the floor, on the pillars, and on the ceiling. And we want to thank our wonderful other contributors, including Linda Lighton, who's here with us today. The format, we have entrepreneurs present for 10 to 15 minutes, and then we do around 40 minutes of Q&A, and then we do some art business announcements to keep you up what's happening. And this is all happening within an hour. All right, so I will tell you more about Robert Castillo. And he's a jazz bassist, composer, electronic music producer, oil painter, and stone sculptor. As a performer, he has received recognition from NPR and works on a national level. Through these last few years, Robert has focused on his visual arts. He has shown in many Kansas City area galleries. Robert has businesses and practices that are distinct, and he's continuously expanding his themes and mediums, fusing them to generate truly unique works. And I invite you to please engage with him on social media because you can see what he's doing next. All right, Robert.
Hello, everyone. Quick switch over here. How's the mic work, Sam? All good? Groovy. Cool. Righteous. Right on. Well, yeah, thank you, everyone, so much for being here today. Thank you, Susanna and the GuildIt team, for asking me to be here. It really feels like an honor. I mean, I'm just a 30-year-old doing my thing, so it's really, it feels good to be asked to share about my insight, about my art practice, and all these things. So I'll just start with a little bit about my background. I'm originally from Kansas City. I was born at Research Medical Center down in South KC, graduated from North Kansas City High School in 2010, and then 4 years later, graduated from North Central College in Naperville, which is just west of Chicago. I got a jazz bass major, and I got a minor in environmental studies. Just picked up enough classes to get an environmental studies minor. And because this is a business talk, I want to go ahead and just kind of give a brief overview of my relationship with money. When I was a senior in high school, I just needed to get away. I didn't pay attention to how much schools cost. There was a bass player in town, Bob Bowman, who recommended I go to the school I went to, and so I did. And it was a liberal arts college that was very expensive. And so it was my junior year of college when I realized how much debt I had signed up for. I sunk into a pretty deep depression, just feeling all the weight of the student debt that I was going to be experiencing and living through. I almost dropped out of college that junior year. I started having suicidal thoughts. It was not great. During that year, I also started researching how to live a life without money. I found this book called The Man Who Quit Money, and that ended up being like my Bible for a while. It's a very beautiful book, just in general. And so I did not end my life. I'm still here, and instead hunkered down to pay off my student loans. I actually made my last student loan payment this past October. So I met my goal. Yeah, thank you. I met my goal of paying off my student loans before my 30th birthday. So that was really massive. A lot of dedication, obviously, a lot of organization. Got that taken care of. And now I'm at a point where I'm just really grateful for the abundance the universe has provided me and will continue to provide. The universe has been really kind. So after I went to North Central College, I ended up getting a job with AmeriCorps, which is essentially like domestic Peace Corps. I was a K-8 music teacher in Fossil Elementary School, which is a tiny, tiny little town of less than 500 people, right in the middle of Oregon. That's Main Street. in Fossil, Oregon. As you can see, yeah, it's pretty isolated. It's 3 hours from Portland. I didn't have a car for the first 6 months while I was there. And with all the time that I had to myself, that's when I really started composing music. That's when I started beginning to experiment with visual art. And I received some really great advice from my supervisor. She said, out here, you either learn to love yourself or become an alcoholic. And so I engaged in a lot of practices to better myself, to learn to love myself. That's when I really started getting into my meditation practice. AmeriCorps was really great in that they provide an educational stipend for participants, where they give you a large chunk of money that can only be allotted to your student loans or to further your education. So that was really beneficial in helping me pay off my student loans in time. So after I was done with AmeriCorps in the middle of nowhere, Oregon, I ended up going to Portland, Oregon, where I played in 7 bands and I had 4 part-time jobs, and I was just having a blast and a half. The music that I started writing when I was in Fossil ended up becoming the music that we performed with the group called the Sextet. It was a 6-piece jazz ensemble that I led when we were in Portland, that I reformed when we moved back to Kansas City. We actually recorded 3 albums, 1 when we were in Portland, that first one in Natural State, and then 2 when I came back to Kansas City. We actually have an audience member here, poet Jen Harris, who was on the 3rd album there, Among Friends. And okay, so yeah, our business talk, let's talk about money. You don't make a lot of money being a musician, being a band leader. For streaming on a website, it takes 300 to 500 plays for me to get a penny. So it's not a very lucrative thing. There is this platform Bandcamp, which is how artists can make the most percentage of money. They only take 10% of revenue. And so if you buy an album for $10, I get 9 of it. But even still, that's not a super popular streaming site. And once a person buys an album, they have the files, and thus they're probably not going to engage with it very much. They might stream it afterwards, but then, that's fractions of a penny per stream. The best way to make money as a band leader, as a band, is through selling merchandise, because that's where you have the highest profit margins. But that comes with its own heavy workload of preparing designs, ordering supplies, marketing the new work. And so it doesn't really necessarily pay off. So yeah, being a band leader, being a musician is a lot of work. I also do sell my original music. So I have a lot of original compositions and arrangements. On the left, that's actually a video of my an orchestral piece that I composed. It was performed back in April by the William Jewell College Ensemble. So that's them performing the piece. So I have the piece listed over at this website, JW Pepper, where people can go ahead and purchase these scores. Generally, the clientele are like middle and high school band directors and orchestra directors. It does require a lot of self-promotion to sell work via these websites, because there are a lot of composers in the world. So it's still not necessarily a lot of revenue. And also, it's a lot of work to prepare and document and format all the documentation to go onto this website. I have a lot more that I could upload. I have about roughly 50 to 60 original compositions and arrangements that I just haven't put up there, because it is a lot of work to format everything to match their standards. Another way that I get income is through gigging. This is a photo from the Sextet at Boulevardia in 2018. That's Calvin Arsenia there with the veil on. Quite the performer. But before shutdown, I was playing about 5 gigs a week. And so that was roughly half of my monthly income would come directly from gigs. Some gigs do pay, others don't. Sometimes you just take a gig because you know you're going to love it, because you know it's going to be something that is going to fulfill your soul. Jazz gigs are by far the most profitable. The going rate for before shutdown was $100 per musician per gig, whereas now post-shutdown is closer to $125, $150 per musician per gig. And now post-shutdown, for a variety of reasons, I'm not necessarily gigging as much. I'm averaging, where I was averaging about 5 gigs a week, now I'm doing about 4 a month. This month I actually had 6 gigs. And I am honestly really happy with this balance. Being a musician is a lot of work. It's a big toil on the body. I actually do have some spinal stuff going on because of just how intense the upright bass is. It's a lot of work to prepare music for a gig. It's a lot of work to get to the rehearsals. It's a lot of work to get to the gig early and set up. And so all in all, being a musician is a lot of work that doesn't necessarily have an equal amount of financial compensation. But I do really want to state that the spiritual compensation from communal creation is so worth it. I mean, the energy that you just create, and you just build that on stage, and then you get a whole room just engrossed in your energy. It's extremely rewarding, just not financially so. And then a more recent income stream that I've been able to develop is through painting. 4 years ago, I started painting, and after a friend challenged me to create enough work to host a solo show. And so this is actually an image from my first show. That's half of it. There's another half. This is actually over at PT's, the coffee shop in the Crossroads. And that first show was super successful. I sold several pieces, including the one you see there. That was a 40-inch by 40-inch painting called A Visitor to the Mayan Market. And that piece sold for $400. So it was really, really encouraging at my first display of art, of my visual art, to have those sales. And I've been selling work ever since. Pricing work is pretty tricky. Just because, pricing work is very tricky. A very modest rule of thumb is to charge based on an hourly rate. So, I was starting out assuming that I would charge $10 per hour per the amount of time it took me to do a painting. And now I'm sort of around $20 an hour. But it's also based on medium. If it's an oil painting, that's obviously going to be more costly than a gouache painting, which is a less expensive material. And since it's water-based, takes less time. So these pieces over here, all of these have a little bit of a story. The piece on the far left over there, that's titled The Drummer. That piece ended up selling to a friend of mine in San Francisco for $1,500. So that was really cool. This piece in the middle is called Portrait of My Father. And that one I'm actually driving tomorrow to Norfolk, Virginia to drop that off at a gallery over there. It's going to be in a juried exhibit that had 770 paintings submitted, but only 66 were selected. So I feel pretty honored to have that piece receive some nice recognition. I do ship prints internationally. The piece closest to me here is called #SocialDistancing. That one actually sold at a show here at KCAC last year for $900. And this was the first piece that I ever had prints created for. And that was actually sparked by the request of a friend of mine in Berlin. He saw the piece, he wanted prints, and so I decided to figure out how to get prints and actually have them done by the Lazarus Group, just a few houses down here. I've done a lot of work to build international networks, either via social media, but also through international events like Burning Man. I go to Burning Man and you just meet people from all over the world. I have friends from Israel. I have friends from Australia. And that's been really great to build those international networks. The best way that I have found to sell prints is to have a very limited run, maybe a maximum of 20. And then what I like to do is post them on Instagram stories saying like, hey, I have prints of this piece available. Let me know if you want to scoop one. People who view your Instagram stories are those who are mostly involved or engaged with who you are and what you do. So they're most likely the ones who are going to buy your work. And so when I posted initially, about half of them get scooped up right then and there. Once those get sold, I make another post saying, hey, I've got a few left. Who wants one? Most, if not all, then get purchased. And then whatever's left over, I just hold on to in my inventory for art pop-up shows or things like this. And prints are just really nice to have because they're more accessible than the originals, where the originals are just usually out of people's range. A painting of mine will take anywhere from 50 to 150 hours to complete. And as you can see, I paint in a great variety of different styles. Because I'm not solely financially dependent on selling work, I can take my time and create thorough pieces of any style that I want to create. It's really nice to not be beholden to any sort of boundaries. The one closest to me, this was my first oil painting called White Trapezoid. This one was one of my most recent paintings called Gently Undulating. And then the furthest piece was a gouache painting that I created as a commission for a friend. So the way that I find opportunities to display my work are mainly through newsletters. KCAC has a great newsletter with opportunities to display. Mid-America Arts Alliance has a great newsletter. Arts KC has a great newsletter. And then email blasts from this website, Call for Entry, are also really great. That's where I find a lot of opportunities to display. Driving to Norfolk, Virginia was from a Call for Entry news blast. And then when it comes to self-promotion, I have a very lax approach to social media. The social media algorithms are so weird and no one knows what they're doing. So I don't even try to play that game. I don't try to think, oh yes, Friday at 6 p.m. is the best time to post something. I just post something when I post it and it's up there. Followers don't necessarily mean very much to me because there are people in art museums who have significantly less followers than I do. So like, it's not anything that I care about. It's really just a way for me to document my work and share when I have something new. I do only have one account for my personal life and my art. If I want to post something personal, I generally post it as an Instagram story, something that's going to expire in about 24 hours or so. And as often as I can, I like to post works that are as complete as possible, super thorough and robust content. As you can see with this video, the screen recording here, that's the documentation that I presented all at once simultaneously of this painting. You can see the progression from the underpainting. You can see my dad, who's actually back here with the source photo and the original painting. And I really do think that it is important to tell my story, to tell my story with whenever I create work, because an audience wants to engage with the story of what you did. It's a much more personal experience. You get people much more engaged in your process, as opposed to if I just said, hey, here's a painting I did, toodaloo. It's nice to tell the story of it, because every piece of art has a story behind it. So why not share it to get people engaged with you? Hardly ever will I post a work in progress, but that is starting to change now that Reels and TikToks are becoming more popular. That's really how you engage with a wider audience, because people want to be invested in that progress, that progression of your work. Now, I do also get income through W-2 gigs. When I was a sophomore in college, I started fixing cell phones. This is actually an image from 2012 where I was using an iPad dock connector as a mustache. Little did I know I would have a mustache of my own one day. But yeah, I got really good at fixing devices, to the point where when I moved to Portland, I easily got a job. When I moved back to Kansas City, I easily got a job. I can literally go anywhere in the world and get a job fixing phones, because phones exist everywhere and people break phones everywhere. Now I actually have a W-2 job over at Apple doing the same thing. That's me and a couple coworkers on our overall day that we created for ourselves. Yeah, Apple is really amazing. I work there part-time and I get health, dental, vision. My wife gets those things as well. The benefits go on and on. It's just an incredible place to work, to be there part-time. I really like having a W-2 job because it ensures that I have a set amount of income in a specific month, because art is always times of feast and famine. And working part-time, I think, is really crucial, because then that allows me to do all of the creating that I want to do. I believe that success is directly proportional to being organized. So these are my calendars from last summer. I chose last summer because that's the busiest time. My calendars will soon look like this again, but I have a very dedicated organization process with my calendars. As soon as an event is proposed, I put it on my calendar with the word potential up front. That way I don't double book myself and I know that that time is allotted. And as soon as I think, oh, I need to reach out to this person to schedule a time, I send that time, I put it on my calendar. And yeah, so on this calendar, blue are social engagements that are music related, gray are social engagements that are not music related, yellow are rehearsal, green are gigs, purple is work, this like light pink color is volunteering. I'm on top of it. Now, I'm also a firm believer in spreadsheets. I've been playing this video game RuneScape on and off since 7th grade. It's like watered down World of Warcraft. It's great. This is a video of defeating a boss within the video game. And this is a spreadsheet that I created to track my profits over killing this boss 120 times. I experimented with different gear to see if higher valued consumable weapons would make a significant enough increase in profit to warrant using them. And so this level of organization has transferred over to my business life, where this is a spreadsheet I created to keep track of my finances. The left is broken down into W-2, 1099, and cash income. I have a separate savings account where I put 35% of my 1099 income into that account so that when tax season rolls around, I can go ahead and do that. I learned that lesson the hard way, where I did not put my 1099 tax income away and owed Uncle Sam a lot of money at once. And then my expenses section is actually broken down to match H&R Block's deductions categorization, so that when it comes time to list my deductions, I can just pull up my spreadsheets from the past year and be all right. I do have a QR code if you want to download a version of this tracker yourself. If you want to just go, I'll leave this up for just a moment if you want to go ahead and scan that. Just make sure that you make a copy of the spreadsheet and then save it to your own. What I do is I make a shortcut that I can easily access on my phone. So anytime I make an expense, I just jot it down right then and there. So let's hop over to the last portion of the spreadsheet, of the presentation here, my needs. The first thing I need to do is start an email newsletter. It's something that I've been needing to do for a long time. I just never got into it. It's the best way to keep up with people because you can't always expect social media to exist. So I did actually create a newsletter sign up. It's over on a podium over there by the food. If you all want to be literally the first people to sign up for my newsletter, that'd be a huge honor. I promise I won't send too many emails. If anything, I'll probably send one like every 3 to 4 months, just saying like, hey, this is what I've been up to. I need to upload those original compositions onto JW Pepper because that is a form of passive income that I'm just not tapping into quite yet. And then scheduling more quality time with my wife. You just saw my calendar. We actually have to schedule specific days and times where I just turn my phone off. I don't do any sort of work and I just hang out with her. And that's really beneficial and beautiful because she really reminds me the necessity of rest and the beauty of that. Some challenge that I experience, one is just being an emerging artist. I've only been painting for 4 years, and so I'm still considered an emerging artist. So although my work is at an extremely high level, I can't sell it for what it's actually worth, because in art markets, worth is also associated with the length of time that you've been creating. So wink, wink, nod, nod. If you buy my art now, it's going to appreciate into a lot later. So this is a good time to get into it. Another challenge is wanting to do all the things all the time. I say yes to things a lot. And oftentimes that makes it so that prioritizing my interests become a little bit difficult. So that's one of my challenges. And then another challenge is just finding new ways to generate passive income. I'm sure there are a lot of unknown unknowns, so I'm really interested to hear what sort of passive income revenue streams people might be able to suggest. And then lastly, my goals. I would love to display my art in Europe. I have a goal of, by the time I'm 35 in 2027, of displaying work in 5 different European countries. Another goal is to complete my first marble sculpture. I started stone sculpting earlier this year, and my first sculpture actually did already have a gallery display. And now I'm working on a marble sculpture. I found a beautiful block of Italian marble that I've been chipping away on. I about have 80 hours into it, and it's gonna take a lot of work because for this first one, I'm just using hand tools. I wanna be a purist in that sense. I don't wanna use power tools for this first one, so it's taking a long time. And then my last one is to expand to new mediums. I do have this idea to create 3D designs on the iPad and then have them printed out, maybe do a short run of like 20 or so of those and then sell those. I think that could be really nice, a really cool way to continue to expand. So thank you very much for your time. Again, if you're interested in being the first to sign up for my newsletter, please do that. Check me out on Instagram, blob_castle. And yeah, thank you. It's on the podium right over here.
Where the food is.
Oh, I should put it up on my website. Thank you. Mentally noted that down.
But yeah, so we're going to start brainstorming and helping Robert grow his business. So do we have anybody who wants to kick us off? Excuse me?
How are you shipping internationally?
Usually FedEx. I've only shipped... Yeah. Generally, I've only done prints so far. U.S. mail?
A lot cheaper, and everything better.
Okay.
Yeah, just so Facebook in here.
Yeah, we were talking about shipping internationally, which I'm working on right now and keep doing. Yeah, you don't have to pay the overseas tax, and you miss all that stuff, and it's cheaper, and it's fast.
Okay,
US
cool.
mail.
Yeah, I guess I've had this sort of mental approach to U.S. mail that it is not as reliable. I don't know why I've held that thought. Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, a lot of bureaucracy, but they get the job done. so you don't pay for that bureaucracy.
Yeah, cool.
Our taxes do. So anyway, other questions we have? All right.
Hi, I have a question. So as a not artist myself, but a person that likes to support local art, what are the best ways to find opportunities to support local artists? You mentioned a few newsletters that might be good to follow to find like exhibits and things, but where do you find the best way to find artists where I might like their work?
Yeah, that's a good question. When it comes to music, if we're thinking about music as an art form, the best way to support them, honestly, is buying merchandise at gigs, because that's going to be the best. Or even if you put like a 20 in the tip jar, that is like a huge boost. That's one way. But when it comes to visual art, supporting artists is buying work, or even just asking like, hey, I noticed that I noticed this piece of yours that I really enjoy, but I can't necessarily afford it right now. Are you going to have prints of this? And even just once enough interest is generated for an artist to create prints for something, that might then in there be the impetus for them to go ahead and create those prints. First Friday is a good way to get out there and find even like the smaller galleries in the Crossroads, or even over here at KCAC. Yeah, newsletters are honestly just a really great way of finding out what's going on in the city and where artists are displaying and how to purchase their work.
Yeah, and I encourage you to invite friends and
Totally.
to your outings.
Oh, yeah. Blair Schulman has that Midwest agenda, and if you're having a show, you can, or whatever, you can report to him. But the big problem in this city is that we don't have any newsletter for reviews that are for real. I mean, Casey Studios does something, but it's got the life edited out of it. We need some kind of something here in this town that gives reviews to artists, because you don't exist unless you've been written about. I mean, you and I might not believe that, but
That's what the buyers.
Words are God these days. You know, a lot of days.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually have a follow-up question about that. So you were saying like that Artist Inc. has that newsletter for the review. What sort of platform would you imagine would be beneficial for artists, if not in a magazine format like that?
I don't know. The Paragon thinks we should have a piece of newspaper that comes out. The Pitch doesn't do it. The KC Star doesn't do it. There isn't anywhere in town that does it. I pay for those ones online from KC Studios. Nobody knows they're there. Do you know they're there?
Yeah, I mean,
Almost nobody, and they're hard. I don't know. It has to be something edgy and cheap and exciting. I was thinking online, but she said no. She thinks newspaper. You want to help? Go at it.
I have a follow-up question to yours, I guess, is what is the biggest benefit out of those reviews? Is it more people seeing the reviews, or is it having basically a quote to say, like for Robert, he can say, hey, I have this quote from NPR talking about my music. Where does the biggest benefit from those reviews come from?
That's a good question. For one, you get qualified, but the other, you're starting a conversation in the town, right? Is that, what do you think?
Yeah, I
well,
go ahead.
too, there's TV as well. So I loved it when Channel 41 NBC had KC Live. And I was able to get artists from GuildIt onto there. And, you know, they all of a sudden, thousands of people became aware of them. So there's another local show. I haven't tried to get artists on since, but that's on CBS. And so definitely those channels, they're prime channels, and it shows during prime time.
Maria Vasquez Boyd.
Yeah. Maria, on radio. So on Wednesdays from noon to 1, she does a show on the arts and a lot heavy on visual arts. And then, but also she covers other arts. And then from 12 to 1 also on Mondays is theater on KKFI radio.
Cool.
Recently, the press validation too comes in that Instagram will verify your account as a real artist if you can offer up like solo exhibition articles for them to verify that you are in fact a working artist that people have heard of. So it's nice to have that link for that.
Yeah.
What is the link? I'll show you more. I'll show you after.
Yeah, basically to follow up, Travis, on your question is to have that sort of recognition from a third party does sort of help give you credit, which is, you know, just not necessarily the best methodology, because there are plenty of artists who are creating beautiful work who just haven't had the opportunity to be reviewed or had the opportunity to be have nice words written about them. But it's just part of the game.
Okay. Let's go back to your goals or I think your challenges where you had Europe as a doing shows in Europe.
That was in goals.
Goals. Okay. So have you thought about getting an Arts KC grant and doing, I know like a muralist went to actually a third world country and did a mural there. And it was on an Arts KC grant that he did that.
Oh, was that Psych?
What?
Was that Psych? Do you know?
Yeah, Psych. It was Psych. And so you might want to look at doing a grant there. And then it's artwork that you can, and I'm not saying a mural, but then the prints you can bring back and share and sell there and sell here. You can collaborate with a gallery there, but you want to work directly with the community. Those grants really like it when you're uplifting a community versus just uplifting your art. If you can combine both of those, then that's what they look for.
Yeah. I do very much like collaborating.
And you can even do a music composition as well as an art piece, and
Yeah.
that would be very unique for
Yeah.
Arts KC to be considering.
Yeah, totally. When I had my display here, I had 11 pieces, and for most of them, I actually had produced a song to accompany them, and there was a QR code that people could could scan and put headphones in and listen to the piece that accompanied each one. Residencies are also a way that I could think about. I actually am going to be participating in my first residency this October. It'll be in Mexico City, and basically what I'm going to do is go to the National Anthropological Museum to study those stone sculptures because my heritage is Mayan. And so basically I would study those sculptures and then just come back to the studio and just chisel away and create one after having that direct reference. So that'll be my first residency that I'll have participated in. And so could definitely see continuing to do that over in Europe as a way to meet this goal.
What's the name of the residency?
It is, oh goodness. It's like goodness, I don't remember. PRGC or something like this. I'm not sure. I got accepted for it a few months back, and there have been a lot of other things in my mind swirling since then. It's a PRGC or something like this.
The name of the residency. Okay, good. And do we have other questions?
Residencies, go to artist resties, one singular artist, RESTIS. It's the listings of international.
Artist residencies, ARITS.
Cool.
Residencies.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Other questions? And yes.
How can we best support you? Just follow you on your social media accounts and
Yeah, I suppose that's a good way of doing it. Purchasing work is also a great way. I mean, obviously that's like one of the most direct things. Yeah, that's a really interesting question because as part of this, I think that you were going to eventually ask the question, like, how can we as a community support you and help you? And that's a really interesting question because when you think of community, you think of a group of people that are supporting each other's growth, supporting each other's betterment. And a community calls in, a community doesn't cast out. And so just in general, and this isn't necessarily totally directed here, this is more so directed like in general, just allotting me the understanding that I'm a human, that I make mistakes, and that I'm continually growing and doing everything that I can to be the best person, the best version of myself that I can. Yeah, that's kind of the more heartfelt answer and version to that. But in terms of financially supporting or just like supporting in general, I suppose, engaging with social media is also really important. But gosh, that's such an interesting question because I don't necessarily, yes, I'm eventually going to like sell my works for a lot of money and things, but it's not a goal of mine. I'm just here floating around, doing my thing, creating art here, going to my job here and creating nice things when I can. So that's an interesting question. I suppose one way, engaging on social media allows it so that the algorithm thinks, oh, we should promote this to more people. That's one way. I don't have a Patreon. That sounds like a lot of work. That's one. Patreon. Patreon is, so what Jen just asked is Patreon is if I have one. Essentially what Patreon is a subscription service where people can subscribe at various rates in order to have more of an engagement with you and your creative process. So perhaps, someone might pay $5 a month and I might say, okay, here is like some sketches that I drew up today. And you as the people that subscribe are the only ones that can see this. Whereas if someone might pay $50 a month, they might be able to participate in like live streams. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll hop on Instagram Live or Facebook Live when I'm sculpting and just have people like check in there. But I also much prefer, it's a much more energetic, sacred space when I know I'm not being filmed and seen. So I have thought about Patreon, but I don't know, honestly, consistency is not anything that I like, consistency of a schedule. Even at my W-2 gig at Apple, I don't have a set schedule, and I love that. I don't like having rehearsals on Sunday mornings or something. So that's kind of been one of my biggest detracting thoughts for why I would have a Patreon. But I'm guessing, do you have a Patreon? Oh, wow. Well, I think Sam wants, if you wouldn't mind answering a little bit more thoroughly into the microphone. I think Sam just wanted the mic to be a thing.
Well, I suggested a Patreon to you because I'm very inconsistent in my posting also, but people like to see what you're doing behind the scenes when you feel like letting them in. And on the basis of that subscription service, I mean, that's my full-time job before I accepted a job here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what does your subscription model look like?
Well, it was pre-pandemic. It was where I sent everybody to start signing up for the writing workshop that I teach. So no longer was I going to accept cash and Venmo and all these different versions of money. If you want to come to my workshop, you have to sign up in this one particular place, and then you pay me per month to do that. And that's the primary place that people pay for that particular service. And then I offer poetry to them, or videos of being on tour, or a rehearsal, or posting things about today on Patreon and saying like, hey, you got to see behind the scenes in my life. Because on social media, I'm very like, this is social media. This isn't who I am. This is just a brief clip of my life. But on Patreon, it's more of an intimate access to me as an artist. So I just feel like you could give it away for free, or you could give it away to people who are paying for it. And I give it away to people who are paying for it. So I encourage that.
Huh. Yeah, that is really interesting. I do enjoy, thank you very much for sharing that. I do like doing time lapses of, whenever I'm working for like an hour or something.
Someone gives you $5 a month to do that, that's great. If 100 people give you $5 a month, that's $500.
Yeah.
Why not?
Huh. Yeah.
It's just a suggestion. If we're talking about
Just-
how to make you more money, I want to make
Yeah, I would just go to her Patreon account and look it over a couple others too.
Yeah.
On Patreon, and you'll get a sense. And she's also been very good at doing Kickstarter and such as well.
Yeah.
So if you, let's say if you get a grant, there's nothing that says you can't do a Kickstarter campaign too to complement that grant and those
Yeah.
goals.
Yeah.
Or if you want something, Kickstarter is all or nothing, but there's others too that are a little
Like
bit more.
Indiegogo is
Yeah.
you can do some.
Yeah.
I have actually done a successful Kickstarter campaign for the first album that we created
There you go.
with the sextet in Natural State. That was all Kickstarter. That was pretty much all Kickstarter funded.
Okay.
With the all or nothing format. And I also know how to do things on a pretty small budget. Like that album, we did it for like $3,200. Whereas, some people think you can't do an album for anything less than $10,000. But no, I mean, yeah, you've done it for $1,000. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we did that for $3,200, and that was a successful Kickstarter. Yeah, it's just always weird asking people for money. But I need to get over that hurdle. I guess that's one of my challenges. Get over the hurdle of asking people for money. Money is a nice thing to share with people.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Why do you want to have 5 European cities,
Countries.
countries? I mean, yeah.
Oh, why not? Why not?
I would suggest if you're in Mexico, city is one of the hottest art markets in the world. You go
Yeah.
get a gallery there, they might have access to your. I mean, I'm sure they do.
Yeah. That's very true.
I think you really should study that up. You have the opportunity to be in Mexico City. My God.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a really good suggestion. Thank you.
Now, too, and this is pre-pandemic, but for Vanessa Lacey, she did a lot of art fairs, and to the point where she's not doing art fairs anymore because that got her enough commission work. And she, she also has a framing shop as well that supports her. But when it came to where we shut down and she couldn't do art fairs, she had enough commission work to where actually she ended up buying her house, I think her first house in 2021. So because she had all this income and COVID, she was one of the people who who really grew her business during COVID. So
Cool.
other questions? Great.
So You have one of your goals as to expand to new mediums. Do you have any idea of which mediums that you might be interested in expanding into, and maybe why, and how that would fit with what you're doing now?
Yeah, good question. To answer the why of that, I'm just continuously exploring the expanse of what I'm capable of. The universe has really gifted me with the ability to be good at anything that I want to do. It's really just a matter of devoting the time to it. I mean, there was a point in time when I was like doing coding for, there was this website called Zenga, and you could like make different layouts based on how you modify the HTML. And so like just for fun, I was like modifying the HTML and just having fun with that. And so, yeah, a lot of the reason why I want to expand to new mediums is to see what I'm capable of, because I think I've only touched the tip of the iceberg. With stone sculpting, that's something that I just got into this year. And yeah, my first piece already got displayed in a gallery. The marble sculpture that I'm working on now already looks really beautiful. Like objectively, it's just really, really special. It just is requiring like the finer details of the sanding and doing like the cleaning up the edges a bit. But so that's one of the mediums that I'm getting into, and I'm interested in exploring different types of stone as well. I actually just got commissioned. There's quite a story related to this, but basically I got commissioned to make a ceremonial Lakota pipe out of alabaster. So that's another thing that I'm going to be working on this year. But one medium that, I was kind of mentioning here that I want to get into that could be really fun is 3D printing. I'm really fascinated by that medium. These here on the side of the wall, sidewall are made with 3D printing. And I just picked up this application on the iPad called Nomad. And it's basically like a drawing program, but you can create 3-dimensional sculptures that you can then just like give to a 3D printer and have them print. And yeah, I think it could be really cool to, include your signature in that, have it numbered like 1 of 20, and then just sell those as if they were prints, like unique, one-off designs. But yeah, I mean, oh, you can print them at the Johnson County Library for free. See, it's really just, there's not enough hours in the day. I wish you could just hit pause. Just let me do a bazillion things real quick.
So yeah, they have a lab there, and it's open during their hours, and they have someone there to assist you as well. But
is there reciprocal membership at the Johnson County Public Library with Kansas City?
you don't have to be you don't have to be from Johnson County. So it's actually one of the engineering firms opened it up for them.
That's cool.
So
I knew the Lawrence Library had something like that. Oh no, Lawrence Library has recording studios that you can rent out. They have. Oh,
so Johnson
my
County
goodness.
has recording studios as well. So great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Let me see. Can you?
Yeah. So
your
switch over to
challenges.
the challenges slide.
So do we have other questions? Did you have a question? Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think being an emerging artist is kind of and that's funny because Marissa actually once said that I am an established artist, but it is really a matter of time. As sort of what Linda was just saying of having press being written about, that helps you become an established artist. And that's, like I mentioned earlier, just part of the game, is part of the game of being an artist and developing, not necessarily a following, and not necessarily developing clout. That's not the word that I necessarily, but like a reputation, to be reputable, so people understand like, oh, what you are making is revered by not just one person, but someone who is, their opinion is respected. So that's definitely one thing that is kind of a challenge.
So do you sell your music compositions as well as your art together? Like for instance, when you did your gallery show and you're selling prints of those pieces, are you also offering up the complement composition piece?
That's a good idea.
Okay.
That's not something that I've done. I suppose what I could have done was have like a short run of CD productions to accompanying it. Yeah, I guess I could have done that.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, there's so many things.
Yeah.
Linda, you look like you were about to say something. Oh.
If you're written about, there's a lot of really great writers here in this town, but it's not only that you get exposure, but a lot of the times you learn something about yourself that you didn't know about or your work. And so I think it adds depth and, yeah, it expands your art and everything. I think it's, so it has another meaning besides making money or getting clients. It's about digging in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, we had a musician, gosh, in January, February, Church. I forget his first name, but he's wonderful in selling his compositions. So you might want to. I'll send you information on him.
Okay.
And see how you can see how he markets them.
Cool.
Okay. And he also does lessons too. I don't know if you do lessons or
Yeah, I used to do lessons. I used to teach lessons because, I mean, aside from my first instrument was piano and then violin and then cello, and then I switched to bass. But then I also know the saxophone. I can get around there. I've taught, when I lived in Fossil and did that, I actually did teach after school lessons on all those instruments and more, drums included. Lessons are just difficult because if you get a student that is just kind of there because their parents told them to be there, or even if you get someone who's just kind of like half involved in it, then it feels like a waste of my time. It feels like a waste of their time. It feels like a waste of their money.
So there's a professor at UMKC on the guitar, I believe, and he's done a whole methodology, which is passive income for him. So it's I think it's definitely a book, but it's also, I believe he does video now too. And so it's a methodology that he developed in playing the guitar a certain way or electrical guitar a certain way. And that has been he's internationally known because of that. So.
I just wanted to say, if you were feeling that way about teaching students, have you thought about teaching adult students? Because the adults that you'd get for lessons would be like very interested in what you were teaching.
Yeah. Yeah, I have thought about that also. Gosh. Yeah, but then it gets my immediate thought is, goodness, there's only so many hours of the day. I do know that teaching music theory specifically is something that I'd be really good at. Because that wasn't my only experience teaching. I've taught lessons. I've also taught like art camp type things, and so I'm pretty good at imparting information. But music theory is something that I'm very grateful to have a super solid understanding and foundation with, because as a jazz musician, you have to. Hot take, I think jazz is the most elevated form of music above classical music, because as a classical musician, you can play and you can have the most beautiful technique, but not understand the theory behind what you're playing. Whereas a jazz musician has to know the theory behind what they're doing. And it is a continuous just evolution in your mind of, okay, now I'm at this point, and as a bass player, I'm thinking, okay, so the soloist just did this thing. What can I play in relation to the chords, the harmonic information that's happening at that moment to elevate what they're playing? And so it's just a much more, and then on top of all of that, you do need to have technique involved. And so, yeah, music theory is something that I would enjoy sharing.
Yeah, so Stan Kessler, who's also a UMKC professor.
Oh, yeah, I know Stan.
So because the trumpet is not that popular as the guitar or such to learn, he does teach a lot of music theory. And again, too, if you can package that onto an online series, then that's something that can be passive income. Just, you have such a great presentation, and you're great at social media. I think you could really do something online to make a passive income, and yeah.
Just tagging all of your Instagram posts of which ones I think you should put on Patreon.
There you go.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Jen, for the mic folks, Jen is going through my Instagram and tagging what post Jen would have thought would be good for Instagram. For Patreon.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Thank you.
That's really funny.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I could go over to the needs slide if you wanted.
Yeah.
We haven't touched on that one yet. I wonder if it'll load, or do I have to click? Cool, there we go. Oh yeah. My email newsletter. Sign. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that even I've had clients and this is my design business, but I have clients who, a couple years later, I hear from them out of the blue, and they're wanting a custom. So I think too, email newsletters is good for custom work too. And so when you're doing email newsletters, not only post, and on social media too, not only post that this is for sale, but say if you want some custom work. Again, and I think email newsletter in particular is a good way to keep in constant contact with customers who may want you to do custom work.
Cool.
So,
Cool.
hi. Another question?
Share your newsletter sign up on your social media? The question was, have you shared your email newsletter sign up on your social media stuff yet?
No, literally haven't. It's literally just that clipboard over there by the podium. Yeah, I'll get around to that. Gosh, but yeah, I mean, like, there's just a bazillion things to do all the time. And in fact, like, I'm potentially going to be taking up like a project manager gig with Apple, which would be really huge. But there are just so many potential paths and avenues through life that a person can take. And it's interesting to have such a broad skill set because there are a lot of opportunities that I could pursue: teaching adults lessons, exploring new mediums, setting up a Patreon, getting my newsletter set up. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll write I'll send you some brainstorming ideas too. And when I do that, I just say whatever feels, rings true to you. So definitely the ideas you got here today, if something rings true to you, then jump on it. But there's other ideas that, that may be mentioned today that don't ring true to you, at least not yet. That, don't feel like you have to pursue everything suggested today.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Well, good. Well, any last questions? How about anybody on scheduling time, quality time? How do you find doing that? And having a date night, I know, I think that's important, where you're actually going out and getting away from the computer, et cetera, so forth. I think that's important to do. I know when I go on my date nights, I feel like, gosh, why don't I do this more often? Because I decharge and disconnect from everything that I have weighing on my mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Date nights are nice. This past Sunday was a whole day with my wife, and that was really nice, where I just, my phone was on airplane mode or off the whole day. It was really pleasant and nice. She and my wife and I have been together we just hit our 13-year together anniversary last month, and next month we'll have been married for 7 years. So quality time is very important.
Terrific. Well, terrific. So definitely connect with Robert on social media. Invite people to explore his work as well, share his work. And I think, and I hope something blossoms with you today that really takes off, because you've got such great things going on. So, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you, Marissa. Thank you, Kansas City Arts Coalition. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you. Okay, and I'm just going to have some closing remarks as well as the Artists Coalition, and then we'll still get you out of here before 1. Okay, oops.
You said your password's right here? Yeah, cool.
Yep, he's got it. All right, terrific. So just to let you know, it's kind of frozen. So what is the... Okay, that's all right. I can wing it. So 3 things that are happening with GuildIt. We're growing. We're looking at opening up some working spaces, artist working spaces at the Plex Pod Westport. With that, we're growing our board. We're looking for more facilitators. We're also, Yeah, and so definitely, I'll let you know more about that, and I'll let the Artist Coalition talk a little bit about what they do, and then I'll wrap it up.
It's always such a pleasure to host GuildIt, and always so fun to meet artists and see where they've gone to. The coalition, as far as what's happening here, these shows wrap up tomorrow is your last chance to see these exhibitions. 3 local artists exhibiting here for this last month. Come down tomorrow. We're here from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. From 5 to 7, we'll be hosting the closing reception with our main gallery artist, Igor Young and Rodrigo Carrasas Portal. They'll be conducting an artist talk and panel from 6 to 7, free and open to the public. And Kylie McConnell's exhibition behind me and around will also be closing tomorrow as well. So please come, see, enjoy, tune in virtually or in person, like I said, from 5 to 7. And we will be opening 2 new exhibitions on July 8th. So come back and see us for our new shows with Carolina Cuervas and Summer Brooks. And again, that show will open at 11 a.m. on Friday, July 8th, with a opening reception from 5 to 8 p.m. where you can meet the artist and see a performance. And otherwise, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, and again, the show's very unique and wonderful and delightful. So come on down. A couple more things. We'll have a email sign up on the table as well as online. Great way to support us in this free programming we're offering. Also, donations always welcome is a good way to support us, and share what we do online as well. We appreciate you, and we wouldn't be here without you. So thank you.